I think we can go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with a brief introduction of SIREN for those of you who are not familiar with our work and our organization, um, and also the purpose of this webinar. And our topic for today is what to expect at your USCIS Adjustment of Status interview. And Joshua, our staff attorney, is going to give you a step-by-step overview of the interview process. He'll also provide some reports on the detention at the USCIS interviews, and also um, he will discuss about what will change for you, or what changes when you have an attorney present. And these will be some of our topics that we'll discuss this evening. And Joshua will provide guidance and step-by-step direction, and also respond to any questions that may come up throughout this presentation. So just a little bit about SIREN. SIREN supports immigrant communities across California to be their own agents for change through a unique four-pronged model combining community organizing, legal services, policy advocacy, and civic engagement. And our vision is of a new America where immigrants and refugees are valued, integrated, and seen as essential to our society, and where human rights of all persons are protected and honored. We serve two regions. We have an office based in the Bay Area, specifically in San Jose, and an office in Central Valley. We are located in Fresno. We have teams of organizing and communications, and some of our work consists of some of our programs consist of Comunidad program, which is made up of community members who want to make a difference at a local, state, and federal level. We have the Youth Liberation Institute, short for YLI, that focuses on cultivating the skills of the next generation of organizers. And this program is open to those who are youth between 13 and 21 years of age. We also provide Know Your Rights workshops, and these are our main presentation at this moment, including tonight's webinar, which is also considered Know Your Right workshop that informs our neighbors about their rights. And we also are a partner with the Rapid Response Network. That's our main community defense against ISIS raids. And Rapid Response Network essentially helps us verify what raids are real and provide support to those experiencing real raids and would require support. And we also have a program through the First Five in our Central Valley office that connects parents of children ages 0 to 5 to community resources. And our much needed and one of the most important programs that we have is our legal program. Our legal team provides low-cost legal immigration services, and our team strives to be accessible to people from all walks of life through virtual and telephone consultations. And some of the services that we provide through our legal program is citizenship and naturalization assistance, family unity, family-based petitions like adjustment of status, and also DACA renewal, and also general consultations. We also provide removal defense, which includes asylum and removal proceedings, and other humanitarian services such as support with U visa and a multitude of other programs that Joshua can share with us during his presentation. At this time, I'm going to hand over to Lourdes, my colleague, who will be introducing Joshua, our presenter for the evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miriam. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and making this an important topic for us to cover. This immigration webinar series is a three-part series. Today is the first one. Next coming up will be Monday, March 16. Hope you sign up for that. And then the third one will be on March 24th, which is also a Tuesday like today. And Siren is very excited to host this series and to have the talent and the passion for our community to be informed and have more insight. I want to introduce Joshua, who happens to be a fellow Gemini, so I'm happy that he's always on it because, Geminis, we're always just everywhere. He's an experienced immigration attorney serving immigrants and immigration communities through his work at SIREN. As a senior staff attorney, he represents clients in asylum hearings before EOIR in San Francisco and Concord, prepares declarations, files applications for relief, and argues cases at merit hearings. He also advises on immigration consequences of criminal matters and provides comprehensive removal defense. Joshua's broader practice includes family-based petitions, BAWA, U visas, adjustment of status, and post-conviction relief. A bilingual Spanish speaking attorney and California bar member, he is deeply committed to advancing immigrant rights through legal advocacy, community outreach, and direct representation. Um, did you want me to do it in Spanish, or is anyone here needing to have that service? Remember that we have a number you need to call to get that direct translation. In case you just walked in, I could give you that number again. That's 408-722-8470. Si estás escuchando y necesitas traducción, necesitas marcar al 408-722-8470. Y si estamos ahorita en necesidad de traducción, lo puedo hacer. Do you see any, Natalie? Si gusta, puede levantar su mano o nos puede dejar saber. Parece que no.
I don't see anything in the chat. No.
Well, then it gives me great pleasure to pass the mic over to Joshua. I appreciate you. And I know that, this may be your professional profile, but we really appreciate the compassion and the humanity you bring to the services for our immigration clients and also for our community. Take it away.
Thanks, Lulu. I appreciate it. So the purpose of today is basically to give some information about what it's like to be able to go through the adjustment of status process for immigration purposes at USCIS. Just kind of giving a broad overview. I have practiced in Fresno for a while. I have attended some USCIS interviews in San Jose, but I'm primarily doing this as somebody who has background here in Fresno. There is a material difference between applications being adjudicated by San Jose or Bay Area, San Francisco, as opposed to Fresno. Fresno is a hot spot. Fresno has lots of detentions. It's a different world down here. So I'm approaching it from my viewpoints, but just understand that that does not reflect specifically what's going on in the Bay Area. It probably will get that way, but for right now, it's not the same. I'm just going to give a quick overview of what I'm trying to hit in my time frame. I'm trying to do about 30 to 40 minutes about what step by step it looks like whenever you're in the interview process, what it looks like for you to show up the day of all the way to the end when you walk out, hopefully, and then what to expect from start to finish of the day of. I also want to go over what it's going to look like if you have an attorney versus if you don't have an attorney. What are the benefits, the costs, what type of exposure you're looking at, and kind of going over a protection of your rights at the very end for about 10 minutes. But the bulk of this is going to be going over the play-by-play of what to expect from walking up to the building to walking out of the building. When we're going over the process, what I typically do for my clients is you're going to file all the applications, you're going to get everything submitted. There's going to be notices saying, hey, you have an application pending. There's going to be notices saying, hey, you have your biometrics appointment for your photo and your fingerprints. And then you're going to get a notice saying, hey, we have an interview scheduled. When you get that notice in the mail, it's going to tell you where to go. It's going to give you a date and the time, and it's going to give you some information. You have to take that notice with you. Do not forget it. Either you got to take it or your attorney's got to take it. Somebody's got to take it. Make sure you take that notice with you. That is important for you to get in the door. The way I'm kind of approaching this webinar is kind of giving you a glimpse of what it looks like from my perspective. What I will usually do for my clients that I'm appearing for is about 2 weeks beforehand, between when we get the notice and when we get the interview, about halfway point, I'll have an appointment set up for an hour to talk to my client and prep them. That way they kind of know what to expect, and we kind of have a little bit of a dress rehearsal of what that's going to look like. And I kind of give them that. There are other situations where I get phone calls from attorneys saying, hey, I have a client, they have an adjustment of status in Fresno, can you cover for me? And that's a different circumstance. I'll give them a phone call the day before, and I'll pretty much do the same exact thing. So that preparation is what's key. And we'll get into the differences between having an attorney and not having an attorney, but that preparation is really what we're getting paid for. When it comes to the date of the interview, typically attorneys would kind of just sit there and take notes and document some stuff, but for the most part, we're not doing much. You're really paying for the representation beforehand, the preparation, issue spotting, seeing things that the clients can't see, and then addressing those issues. So whether you're going to a nonprofit or whether you're going to a private practice, just be aware that that's really where the dirty work happens, is way before the interview. The interview is a very basic and simple process, but you got to do the work beforehand. And just to give a heads up, I do have a private practice and I work with SIREN. I'm moving much more towards only working with SIREN, but if it sounds like a context, like I kind of said, that's what you're paying for. Obviously, SIREN doesn't charge. We don't charge for our services. But if I sound like I'm kind of one of those blood-sucking attorneys that do that, then that's because that's what I am too. So going into what kind of goes on the days before. So you get the interview notice and then you call the attorney. I jump on the phone and I talk to the clients. I give them a rundown. What I tell the clients is show up early. You want to get there about an hour to 45 minutes before. I'm talking locally here in Fresno. If you're here in Fresno, make sure you get there early because they give lots of tickets. And I mean lots of tickets. I've gotten multiple tickets there. You want to show up in time to be able to download the app. There's a Park Mobile app. You want to get on that app. You want to pay for your stuff, and you want to get that stuff set up for at least 2 hours because you got to be ready for that, and they're going to give you tickets. So make sure you get there in advance. Make sure you download the app. Make sure you have your credit card and pay for all that stuff, because if you wait till the day of and you show up 15 minutes before, there's going to be a line of people and everybody's struggling for 10, 15 minutes trying to figure out what to do and how to pay for this parking spot that you don't know how to use, and it's just a mess. For the love of God, do it all in advance. When you get there, you want to make sure that you're leaving everything in the car. You don't need to bring in your phone. If you got your phone and it's on, they could look at it. They've never had an interview where they've said, open up your phone. I want to see what's on there. I want to see the photos. I want to see text messages with your spouse. But I have heard of that happening in other places. I've never had that happen in Fresno. I've never had somebody who I've talked to, an attorney that's actually had that, but I have had talks with other attorneys nationwide where that has occurred. So for the love of God, just leave your phone in the car. Okay, just find your attorney outside, find them, throw everything, all the mobile devices in the car, turn them off, just leave them there. You don't need them. What you can't forget is, of course, that interview notice and all of your evidence. So you're going to take all your evidence and you're going to meet up with your attorney right outside the door. Do not go in the building without your attorney. Again, I'm not doing this just for informational purposes. I'm doing this through the lens of you people in the audience. If you're going to an interview, what do you want to know? So I'm not just trying to give you guys just broad information. I want to give you guys a play-by-play of what to expect. What you can expect is show up with everything, show up with all of your originals, meet up with your attorney, approach the door. They're going to ask for your IDs. If you do not have valid IDs, you're not getting in. If your attorney does not have a valid ID, they're not getting in. You have to have a valid ID, passport, something to get you into the door. They're going to make sure you don't have any weapons. They're going to make sure you don't have any nail files. They're going to make sure you don't have any pepper spray. If you are high or you got medical marijuana, do not show up with that. That is legal in California. It is not legal in a federal facility like immigration. So you leave that all of that in the car, right? So you're going to show up, you're going to go through a kind of TSA type of entry when you're going through the airport. It's got the whole weaving in through line. You show up at the very front. You take all of your materials out, take all your laptop, all your documents, your rings, marriage ring, your wedding ring off. You're going to have your belt off. You're going to take your shoes off, run you through security one by one slowly. So make sure you show up plenty of time beforehand because you got to go slow and they're going to make sure every single person gets through security. Once you get through security, you and your peoples are going to go to the front desk to check in. Now, when I say you and your peoples, who are you and your peoples, right? That's going to be your attorney, me, right? It's going to be you, the applicant, the immigrant. It's going to be probably the petitioner, which could be your U.S. citizen spouse, might be your U.S. citizen parent, might be your U.S. citizen child. Usually it's going to be spouse or children. So that person that's petitioning for you is going to come with you, and you may or may not have an interpreter. If you don't speak English, if you speak a different language, I don't care what language it is, if you need an interpreter, you're showing up with your interpreter. If you show up without an interpreter, then back in the day, no problem, right? You just get one on the phone, immigration will provide one for you, everything's going to be just fine. Not anymore. Okay, if you show up without an interpreter, they could just either deny it or kick you over to a different date, and then they get to decide if they're going to let you walk out or not. Because if you got maybe you get things rescheduled, or they say you should have showed up with an interpreter, but you're not walking out with your green card. And if you don't have status, then you're without status in a federal building with immigration and ICE officers there. You can probably expect that you're going to get detained. So make sure that if you need an interpreter, show up with one. If you kind of speak English and you can communicate well, show up with an interpreter. Okay. If you need one and you don't have one, you're going to get yourself in some trouble. So when I say we walk in together, that's going to be me, the applicant, the petitioner, and the interpreter. If you got somebody else, a friend of the family, right, they're going to sneak in as an interpreter, that's not going to happen. It needs to not be your family, okay? If it's going to be somebody that works for the attorney, that's probably not going to work out. Okay, you want somebody that's neutral, that doesn't know you personally, is not going to lie for you, or who's not going to kind of change your answers a little bit and kind of take the edge off of your answers. You want somebody that's just neutral, that doesn't really care about whether you're going to get approved or not. That's what I recommend. There's lots of people who can be that interpreter. We got a list of them. They're very good. If you need one, call Civic. That's what I usually tell people. They got enough people to do it. So when you walk in there, you're going to go in and check in, right? If you're not on that list, you're not getting in. If you're a kid that wants to be there for emotional support, you're not getting in. Only the people that are required to be in there are going to get in there. So you go in and check in. When you check in, they're going to take your photo and they're going to take your fingerprint. They take your photo and they take your fingerprint to make sure you are who you say you are. You're not somebody that's getting petitioned and you got your wife petitioned for you and then your brother shows up because you're scared you're going to get detained, or it's a cousin that you're trying to hook up and try to help out or something like that. They're going to verify everything. So make sure that you're not doing any funny business. They're going to verify everything. And before they check everything, they're going to confirm that your prints match up with your prints when you check in, same prints that you took months before when you're doing the biometrics appointment dates. All of it is going to have to match up. So make sure you're doing everything properly. You're going to have to give your fingerprint. They're going to take your photo and you're going to go up the elevator. Once you go up the elevator, if you haven't showed up with your attorney and you're kind of thinking they'll meet up with you, they ain't going to meet up with you. Okay, if you go up the elevator, that's because you're going to get called. Okay, so do not go up the elevator until you got everybody in your group, your little clan of people. Make sure you got them all together, because if you're not going up together, then you may or may not see your attorney up there. You may or may not see your interpreter up there. Make sure you go up as a group ready to go. When you go up there, what I generally tell people is if I got an appointment and it says 9 o'clock, I am happy if I get called by 10 o'clock. I usually give myself an hour bubble. Sometimes I get called immediately. Sometimes it takes an hour. Sometimes it takes 2. Seen it take 3 before. Okay, just be ready for that. That's why you got your little park mobile app on your phone to make sure you're able to add minutes to your parking because it might take forever. When it comes to these officers, some of these officers work 10-hour days, 4 days a week. Some of these officers work 8-hour days, 5 days a week. So if you get an officer that is working early in the morning, they show up very early and leave very late, you might have your interview at 7:15 in the morning, and they might call you at 7:15 in the morning. So you got to be ready to go. They might call you at 8 o'clock. They might call you at 9 o'clock because maybe they're set you up the early slot, but they're not even showing up till 8 o'clock. They won't be ready till 9 o'clock. That happens sometimes. So just be aware. Just because you got an appointment at 7:15, you got to be ready to go at 7:15. You got to be ready to go at 9:15. Anywhere in between, you got to be ready. When you get there, you're just going to sit there. It's going to be like a DMV process, kind of just sitting there, bored out of your mind, playing on your phone. Everybody's just nervous sitting there, kind of, kind of got your nervous tick and kind of freaking out about it. You're just going to sit there pretty much and wait for about 30 minutes, maybe an hour, maybe an hour and a half. You're not going to get called to the windows. They're going to have windows there that they call people up and they go say hi to them and they talk to them. That's not you guys. If you're adjustment of status, you're going in the back with a one-on-one with the officers. You're not going to go to some window and just talk to somebody. You're just going to sit there and they're going to come out from one door or the next and they're going to talk to you. Okay, so once they call your case, then you're going to go up to the door and they might just check on you. There's some officers that will check on you and just say, who's here, who's not here? Okay, go sit down. I'll call you in a minute. Some officer will just call you up and say, okay, who are you? And I'll say, I'm the attorney. This is a client. This is a petitioner. This is the interpreter. They might say, I speak Spanish, and they're all Spanish speakers. Interpreter, goodbye, go home. I don't want to see you again. They might say, hey, petitioner, we don't need you. Go sit down. I'm only taking the beneficiary, the immigrant, and their interpreter or not. So just be aware that there's it's not a set way as to how they're going to do this. But usually what happens is all of us are going to go into this room and it's going to be secure and they're going to close the door and they're going to tell you to, we're going to go over your application and they're going to want us to all sit down and talk. And, you're going to raise your hand, make sure you're saying, telling the truth. And they're going to put you under oath to make sure that you're telling the truth. And you got to tell the truth. You gotta. So when they do this, they're going to sit you down. Sometimes they kind of look you in the eye and kind of scare you a little bit. They're going to do the interpreter. Interpreter is going to have a form to fill out and get their kind of their stuff out of the way. They're going to check their IDs. They're going to verify them. They're going to sit down and talk to you about your case. They're going to tell you they're going to go over the application. They're going to go over the evidence. Then they're going to give you a decision. They may or may not separate you. If you're doing this based on a child petition, let's say a child's petitioning for a parent, usually there is not going to be too many interviews with that, and they're not going to separate you because there's not much fraud there. There is a lot of fraud with marriage, so they will separate them. I have not seen marriage-based petition that they did not separate the petitioner and the beneficiary. Over the past, I'd say 6 to 8 months, things have changed. But there's exceptions to every rule. The exception that I've seen is military people. If you're military, or your petitioner's military, then they treat you a little differently. Most of the individuals who work for USCIS are former military. So what I have seen personally is that they treat people with military backgrounds differently. They do not separate you guys. They will be nice to you. They'll treat you with respect and with love, and they'll kind of blur the lines and be like, yeah, that's not really a big deal, and then they grant it. Very, very different for anybody else, but military people, they will definitely hook you up and they'll take care of you. As to other groups, maybe not so much, but that's okay. So when they do the interview process, they may separate the petitioner and the beneficiary, and they'll ask them the questions. They'll go over the applications. But the vast majority of these are looking at marriage-based. That's what I'm kind of focusing on today. When you're doing a marriage-based application, what they're going to look at first is your I-130 application. There's really 4 applications that you file for immigration. One is your I-130, just saying that you are a person and you have a spouse who is a real person. You got birth certificates to show that, and you got a marriage certificate showing that you're married. Then the next application is a green card application saying that, yeah, you got that, the petitioner, you got the spouse, you got the person who's applying for you. This is the reason you should be able to get your green card. The 485 is a green card application. What typically happens is they approve the I-130 way before you ever show up. That is months before that's already approved. That's set in stone. You're really just showing up for the 485 adjustment of status. Right now, they're not doing that. The reason they do that is because now they can find either way to deny the application. They can deny the I-130 saying, no, we need some more evidence, or they can deny the 485 saying, hey, we need some more evidence for this application. You're missing a little something, so then they detain. So when they separate you, the main thing that they're separating is they're looking at the two applications first. They're doing the I-130 first, which means it's a spousal. So usually if they're going to separate you guys, first person that's going to sit in there is the petitioner spouse or the petitioner child. That way they can start asking them questions and say, do you really want to petition for this person? Yes or no? Obviously, yes, right? But they got to ask those questions. They're going to see whether this is, if this is a child that's petitioning for the parent, they're going to want to find out, was that parent really in your life? You know, are they just kind of that, sorry for being, I can be rude sometimes, so don't feel disrespected when I use screwed up terms, but is this kind of that deadbeat parent that was never there in your life when you were growing up, and bam, they show up right when it's time to get the green card. Now all of a sudden they're there in your life. That doesn't work. You need somebody that's been there in your life when you've been growing up through those years of youth. You want to show that, and they want to get proof of that. They want a letter, or they want some type of taxes. They want some documents from the school showing that person of contact was that parent. Show they were your parent growing up and you didn't, you know, get raised by the other parent by themselves. So they're going to check that. If it's a spousal based application, they're going to ask them, hey, when did you guys meet? Oh, yeah. What kind of party was it? Whose party was it? Oh, yeah. Who introduced you guys to each other? They're going to get into those questions. Maybe they're going to ask about, you know, what did you guys get for dinner last time you guys went out to go get some food? Where'd you guys go? Or did you guys go into Pizza Hut? Okay, what kind of pizza did you get? What kind of pizza does your partner like? Did they get buffalo wings with that? And they ask these weird probing questions. They ask these weird probing questions because the questions that your attorney is never going to think to ask. I'm not gonna be able to anticipate all of these type of permutations of what they can ask you. So they kind of go on random little rabbit holes to be able to see if they can catch you. They get some facts from from the petitioner, and then they kick them out. Say, okay, this application looks good. I don't see any problems with the I-130. They kick them out. Then they bring in the spouse, the spouse or the parent, whoever the immigrant is. That's where they sit the immigrant down and they do the same thing under oath, and they start going over the applications and they say, okay, when's the last time they went out to go eat with their partner? What did you guys go get? Yeah, you know, they didn't say a round table. They said it was something else. So why are you saying this, but your partner's saying that? They start cornering you in. They will get, there are inconsistencies with every application. I have never, ever, ever been in an adjustment of status interview where everything goes perfect. There are always, and I mean always, internal inconsistencies. You're never going to be absolutely perfect. It wouldn't make sense if it just seemed wrong if you're absolutely perfect. That wouldn't make any sense. So they will keep probing and keep prying and find some way to be able to get your words and say, your spouse wasn't telling me that. Why are you telling me this, but they're telling me something else? And they're just going to make you sweat a little bit. Now, there are a couple officers here locally. Hopefully none of them are on this call. I don't know if I want to use names, but there's a couple officers. It's really 2 or 3 officers in Fresno that really, they make you feel uncomfortable, and they're going to make you feel like you're losing. They're going to make you feel like you're going to get denied and you're going to get deported. Okay. That's just their style. They're not trying to be rude. They're just trying to put pressure on you. They're trying to make you sweat, and they're trying to get you to trip up. So don't take it personal. There's no way you're going to, just understand that that's the way that they're going to work. Miriam?
I just wanted to jump in and reassure our community members that this webinar is strictly for our community members, and that we have not approved any registration for this specific webinar from any government entities. So just wanted to make sure that we're clear that there is nobody here present from USCIS or any other government entities. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and if they hear about it, I love all of you. No disrespect. I didn't mean anything that I said here today. Um, so there's a couple of them that are just rude and disrespectful. Okay. They will make you sweat. They will make you cry. Sometimes I've heard about one of them. It wasn't my client, but they made somebody cry before. Um, they make you feel like you're going to lose. And that's just the way they flush you out. They know generally if they're going to approve you or if they're going to deny your application before you ever show up. They know whether they're going to get you. What I have seen personally is that they have a list, right? And when they choose to detain people is when ICE is there. And if ICE is there and they got a list of 12 people, and then they got 6 of them highlighted, then they just go through the list, right? And I've seen them walking around with the list when they've taken somebody that was detained, that I was in an interview for, and they just, you know that they're going to work down their list. And if they're not a list of people that finished their interviews, they're ones that have finished and haven't started and are in the process. So they already know who they're going to detain before the day even starts. So puts you in a position where it doesn't really matter what you do or what you say when you go to the interview. They already know what they're going to do to you. They're either going to approve you or they're not. Let's see, getting back to my point. So they're going to make you sweat, right? There's a couple officers that are going to make you sweat really bad. That's okay. That's normal. Most of the officers are very kind. Most of the officers are very nice. That doesn't mean they're going to grant it, but they're not going to make you sweat and make you feel uncomfortable. Let's see what else. They're going to review the application. So one of the things that you want to do, if you have an attorney, they're going to do it for you. If you don't have an attorney, you're going to have to do it yourselves. Any changes that have gone over the past 8 to 13 months in between the date that you filed the application and the date of the interview, you want to make any changes. Any phone number changes, address, phone number, work history, any type of changes you want to make those and write them down and give them to the officer when you're there. So they're going to go over the applications. They're going to go over line by line. They're going to hit the main issues, and then they'll give you a tentative decision, let's say. What are the main worries that immigration officers have when they're doing these interviews? The main flags that they see, which are kind of yellow flags, right? You got yellow flags and you got red flags. Those yellow flags I'm usually doing with people and I'm hitting with them before we ever get to the interview is prior marriages, prior petitions, whether the kids were, in a household when they're growing up with their parent and they were there every single day, or whether they were divorced. You're looking at criminal record. You're looking at exits and entries. Okay, exit and entry is very important. Criminal records, very sticky. I do a lot of that. That's kind of my specialty. So you want to be aware of all of those issues. They're going to hit everything. You're not going to be able to gloss over some things. You're not going to be able to be like, yeah, that was something that happened when I was 14. That's we don't really need to get into that because nothing ever happened. I just, I went to the cops and went to, they just printed me and released me. I never went to court or nothing. Everything was fine. You're not going to gloss over anything. If you got a DUI, they're going to bring it up. If you got, anything beyond a jaywalking ticket, they're going to bring it up and they're going to know about it because they're going to do your background check. So don't try to hide anything. Just be transparent. Let's see. What is next? After you get done with the interview, they're going to give you an answer. If it's an officer that is a supervisor, the officer will tell you whether they're going to grant or deny your application, or maybe they're just going to ask for more information. They can call it a RFE, request for evidence, or a NOID, which is essentially saying they're going to deny your application, but they're going to give you a chance to try to change their mind. Most of the officers with these adjustment of statuses, you're going to know whether you're going to get granted. They'll tell you you're going to get granted. And if you're walking out the building, that's because you're going to get granted. So they'll tell you, oh yeah, I'm recommending your approval. I don't see anything else that I need here. You'll get a notice in the mail. You'll get a piece of paper showing that you showed up to the interview just with your name and saying we're holding your decision. We're not making a final decision today. And they do that for just about everybody, unless they're one of the supervisors doing the interviews. They're not going to give you a decision that same day. So then you just walk out with a piece of paper and a whole bunch of questions. Now, After you get done with the interview, the officer is going to ask you, okay, those are all my questions. Do you have any questions for me? No. Okay, no, no, no. I don't care if you got questions, you hold those questions until you get outside. Okay, do not ask questions to the officers. Nothing good will ever come of those questions that you have the officer. Okay, um, what I usually tell people, well, nothing good, you're just going to trip yourself up or something. Um, what I usually tell people is this: you want to keep these things quick and easy. These officers usually have 8 interviews scheduled, 4 in the morning, 4 in the afternoon. They have enough time for 3 in the morning and they have enough time for 3 in the afternoon. So they don't got time to chat. They don't have time to talk to you. What I usually tell my clients is if they ask for your name, don't give them your name and date of birth. If they ask you where you went to school, just tell them the answer, nothing else. Don't give them additional context. If they want more context, they'll tell you that they want more context and they'll ask you the questions. If you're the officer sitting in here and you know you got to get these interviews, I tell people if they can do it in 15, 20 minutes, just hurry up, get it done, hit it, get out. They can go outside, they can get their cigarette break or they can get their coffee or whatever their fix is. They just want to hurry up and get you out and get to the next client. So just let them do that. Okay, let them get the questions out. They will flush it out. They will take the lead. Just do what they want and then just get to the end. So then when you get to the end, then they're going to tell you, got any questions? Okay, you're good to go. This kind of brings me into kind of our next little segment that I was going to get into, which is detentions at USCIS interviews. So there are a lot of detentions at USCIS Fresno. I'd say it can range maybe about 10 to 20% of the interviews that I go to feels like right numbers of that's about how many people are getting detained. It really varies based on criminal record and evidence that's submitted. If they can find an excuse to kind of say, you kind of need this other evidence, you're going to get a continuance. In the meantime, we're going to detain you. Don't worry, you're still going to get your green card, but for the meantime, we'll detain you. A lot of these detentions, what I notice is you're going to feel it coming. At the end of your interview, there's going to be a couple minutes where it's really silent and nothing's really happening. And you're going to see the officer. There's going to be a lot of pings going on with the computer and they're just going to be typing. It's going to be awkward and you're kind of waiting, seeing what's going on. There's going to be about 2 or 3 minutes of that. And that's when they're coming. They're notifying the ICE officers that are present to be able to, that they've terminated, they're done with the interview and they give the ICE officers a chance, right? And what happens is if you're in immigration court, then USCIS does not have jurisdiction. USCIS is the administrative agency that reviews applications. They have the power to grant or deny your application. If they've already started immigration court, then there is no ability for USCIS to make a decision on your case. So what they ask ICE is they're like, we're done with our interview. I can make a decision. Are you guys intervening here? And if the ICE officer says, yes, we're going to file an NTA for this, then that strips the jurisdiction from that officer that's sitting with you in the interview. You're not going to see it coming, but that's what's happening. And that's when they got that 2 or 3 minutes silence with pinging and going back and forth. That's that conversation. So they're figuring out whether they're going to move on you or not. So it's going to be silent, then the officers will show up and then they'll walk in. So once they started that, once they've said they're initiating the NTA, which is the notice to appear in immigration court, you can't get it approved through USCIS. It's categorically impossible. So you just have to understand, what I tell people is, once they choose to move on you, and once you get those 2 or 3 minutes and it's kind of freaking you out a little bit, usually I'll tell the client, I'll look at them and be like, this is bad. And they'll look at me like confused, like, what? Everything's going great. And then they'll walk in. Just be aware, just don't freak out. Just expect it. It's gonna suck. They're gonna walk in, they have guns. Okay, they have the guns on their holsters and they'll put their arm. That's like, you see it on TV when ICE is coming out and they're jerks. They have their hand literally on their gun when they walk in. They have handcuffs. They will put you in handcuffs. It's going to be uncomfortable and it's going to suck. And it's like, no matter what you say or what you do, nothing you say or do is going to change their mind. They're going to take you. And that's messed up, but it's going to happen. So just understand that, if you're on that list and you got your name highlighted and you never knew it to begin with, but from the start of the day, they were always going to move on you. And there's no way you're going to be able to know it before you get there. So they'll initiate the NTA. They say they're going to file one, and they will by the end of the day. That strips the jurisdiction from USCIS. ICE officers, 2 of them will walk in, one white male, one white female. They'll walk in, they'll get you, they'll put you in handcuffs. If you're kind of fighting and arguing with them, they will put the handcuffs behind you and their hands behind your back sort of thing, and take you out like walk of shame. When I go in with clients, before we go in there, I'll explain all of this. Everything that I'm telling you guys today, that's the same exact stuff that I'm talking to with my clients in that hour of prep time before and during that usually about 20 minutes to 60 minutes while we're waiting in that DMV-like waiting room. So I'll tell them all of this, and I'll tell them if they do it, I don't think they're going to take you. I tell them the truth. If I think they're going to take them, I tell them. I think they're going to get you. But if I don't think they're going to take them, I'll tell you. I don't think they're going to move on you. But if they do, don't fight them. Don't push. Don't try to get away. Don't try to convince them. Just go with them. It's just going to suck, and nothing that you say or do is going to make a difference. Just go with them. And what I've seen is they'll look at me and they'll tell me, do you want to address your clients, or should I, do this? And I'll be like, I've told them everything. We've gone over all the issues. They know this is a possibility. I've told them what to do when this happens. Tell them just shut up and go with it. And then they'll be like, I can tell your client's not going to fight us. They'll handcuff them in front of their bodies, which is a lot more comfortable than behind your bodies. They'll ask them to stand up and they'll walk you out. When they walk you out, you're going to have some of your belongings. They, like I said before, they interview the principal first, the petitioner first. So that person just can be sitting out there just like, what's going on? You know what I mean? They're not going to know what's going on. They're never going to see you walk out because there's a different elevator for the people in detention. They're gonna sneak you down through the middle elevator, and your spouse or loved one's never going to see you. You're just going to be in the detention center. They're going to be like, what the hell? So they'll take you through the different elevator. You're just going to go down there. They're going to take you with their belongings. Usually I tell people, maybe give me your wedding ring or, whatever jewelry you got, because I don't want those to accidentally on purpose kind of get lost. It's kind of pathetic that we have to have that conversation with our federal government, but it has been documented to happen that sometimes they lose some stuff on accident, I think. So just be prepared for that. They will take you down the private elevator. They will come out with your belongings. I'll keep the belongings, or that's going to go with the USCIS officer. The officer will then turn to me and say, what do you want to do now? I will go talk to the partner. If you don't want to talk to them, because some attorneys, they don't want to do that. And they're like, no, like, screw you, right? No, you go do it. You want me to make your job easier? You go talk to the spouse and tell them what you guys are doing. I don't think that's better for the spouse. So I'm like, no, I talked to them before. They know what's going to happen. They know to expect this as a possibility. And so I go talk to the client and I tell them what's going on and what happened and what my assessment is. So that's what the detention process looks like when you're at CIS. They're just going to do those little pings. You're going to have that 2-3 minutes of awkwardness. You're like, what's going on? Should I walk out? Are we good? Seems like everything's great. They're giving you the paper saying you're done with the interview. That's great. Okay, where do I go? And then they walk in and they detain you. They got their guns. They got their handcuffs just to go with it. After they detain you, they're going to take you down the elevator. They're going to put you in a car. It's going to have a cage in it. Just that's the way it is. They're going to drive you a couple blocks down the way to L Street, and then you get processed in the ICE detention center there locally here in Fresno. At the detention center, you're going to be able to call people. People can come visit you. People can't really call you, and people can't really come visit you, but that's what they tell you. And then they're going to give you the notice to appear. The notice to appear is starting immigration court, okay? If you're English speaking and you can read it and you understand it, then you're going to get it. But if you're not, then you're never going to understand what you're signing. It's not illegal for them to lie to you. They can tell you, hey, don't worry about it. Your spouse, they can petition for you as soon as you get out. your family, they can petition for you. You'll be right back in a couple of weeks. Just sign here. Then you're not signing the NTA. You're probably signing your voluntary departure. Okay, they can lie to you to tell you you're signing one thing when you're actually signing another. Who's gonna know, right? Who's gonna? They don't have the body cam, the Axon body coverage, for you to be able to see how these conversations go. So unless you know what you're signing, don't sign anything. Okay, just tell them I'm sorry. My attorney is he's a nut. Told me not to sign anything, even if I know this isn't a voluntary departure. I'm just not going to sign it, and they'll just write on there refusal to sign, no biggie. Okay, they're still going to process the same documents. They're going to file them with immigration court, and because they're in immigration court now, USC no longer has jurisdiction. So you go before an immigration judge. In the meantime, they're going to detain you. They have the right to do that. So what I tell clients is the end result is going to be the same. Okay, you're going to get the green card. If you're supposed to get your green card, you're going to get it. They can't change that end result, but they can mess with you in the meantime. And that's what this process is. They detain you to mess with you, to control you, to scare you, to force you, to strangle you, sometimes literally, to detain you and to make you tap out. But just stick with it. If you're supposed to get your green card and your case really is clean, like I've seen them before, representing them right now, people that have clean cases that got detained for no reason or stupid reasons, and that end result's going to be the same. You're still going to get the green card, but it's just right now, between now and the adjudication before the immigration judge, that's where they can mess with you. That's where they can detain you, and that's where you can either get held with bond or without bond. That's a whole different story, and we'll get into that in a different webinar. But just understand that when you get into the CIS office and they transfer to you to the ICE detention center on L Street in Fresno, just don't sign anything. Just exercise your right to silence. Just shut up, do the process. And I tell clients, it's going to be 2 or 3 days of black. You're not going to be able to talk to you. We're not going to know where you're at. They have a website where they can see where you're at, right? Whether you're in Adelanto or whether you're in McFarland or whether you're in California City. A couple of days, we're not going to know where you're at. And it's going to be darkness, and every single day is going to feel like a week. It's going to suck for your family and your friends, but just roll with it, and you're going to get through it, and you'll get on the other side of it, and then you'll get processed and get your commissary and your phone calls, and you'll get everything going, and it'll work out. But it's you don't know when you walk into your CIS interview what it's going to look like. Let's go with the other possibility. Let's say you get in there and everything's perfect. They screen you. They say, okay, you're good to go. They give you that piece of paper. You don't have those 2 or 3 minutes of awkward silence. They say, okay, you're good to go. We'll send you a notice in the mail. You should get your green card. Then you walk out. When you walk out, hopefully everything went well, and then they will give you the notice. What I usually tell people is, if you're from Bakersfield or something, then by the time you get home, you're going to have it approved. It usually takes a couple hours for the officer to get their approvals, put them all together in a bunch, go to the officer who's supervising them, and grant them. So usually what happens is you're going to look online with the USCIS account, and you're going to be able to go just check the status online, and put in the code specific for you, and it's going to say it's been approved. It's going to say, 3 days later, it's going to say card has been produced, and it's going to put the USPS tracking number so you can track it all the way to your house. Check it out. Make sure that your name, date of birth, everything on there is correct. And if something's wrong, let us know. But usually they get everything correct. So big difference between one and the other. But that's pretty much what the process looks like. From the beginning of walking into your USCIS interview, paying for your parking, getting everything organized, to either walking out in custody or walking out with your loved ones, getting everything approved. That's kind of the play-by-play of how that goes. Miriam, are we good for me to just jump right into what I kind of have as the second part of this? I wanted to kind of go for about 10, 15 minutes talking about the differences between having attorneys versus not having attorneys, or whether we should do some Q&A here.
We can answer some of the questions and then we can jump into your other segment. But I just wanted to add that We have 5 minutes. It's giving me a warning. Hopefully it doesn't shut off on its own. I do apologize for any technical issues that might arise in the next 5 minutes, but I just wanted to say that I truly appreciate your bluntness, Josh. I really hope that your straightforward approach is helpful to everybody else as much as it's helpful to me. Um, just wanted to let everybody know that Josh does not sugarcoat the realities of the process. And this is not to create fear, but to ensure that our community is fully informed and prepared for potential like worst case scenarios. So thank you.
I don't see any questions, so I think I could just roll right in, and I'll try to keep it short and simple, just in case it's only the 4 minutes. And anything that I was going to hit that we aren't able to cover, then we'll just carry it over into the next webinar, since we have a 3-part series here. So basically, what I was going to go over is the differences between having an attorney and not having an attorney, and protection of rights as to what to do, what to say, what not to say. I'll hit the last part first, which is protection of rights. Pretty much what I tell individuals is just keep silence, use your right to remain silent. ICE officers are very cheerful and they're not the way they are on TV. They're very nice people. They're very soft, and they're going to tell you stuff like, "I'm sorry, this doesn't mean you're a criminal. This is just, we just got to do this. It's the president's just crazy, but we just got to take you. So this doesn't mean anything. You're a bad person." And then they'll kind of be nice to you and treat you with love and respect as they're taking you in. They do that on purpose. They do that because they want you to trust them, and they want you to talk, and they want to ask your name and date of birth, where you're from, whether you got criminal records. They're working you already. Okay, don't think they actually care about who you are. They want to do this, right? That's what they signed up for. So just be aware that I always tell people, your name, date of birth, give that to them. Anytime, the way I advise people is give people your name and date of birth. That gives the law enforcement officer, whether it's police enforcement or somebody else, SWAT or whatever, that makes sure that they can run you and make sure you don't have any active warrants. They know who they're dealing with. They ask you for your favorite color, where you're from, whether what kind of football you like, what's your favorite, nothing. Okay, just say, no, I'm not going to answer any of your questions until I have my attorney. Plead the fifth, plead the fifth, plead the fifth. So I always tell people just play that all the way to the end until you got them, because nothing beneficial is going to come from that. They're not going to give you anything. You can, I will tell people, because in an immigration context, it's a little different. You want to tell them that you want to speak to an immigration judge. You're not going to sign anything, and that you want to file for usually asylum or something else. I want to talk to the immigration judge. I want asylum, and I want to, get a decision on my application that's pending right now. And then they'll lie to you and tell you, actually, their application is already denied. We checked on that. It's denied 100%, and they're wrong, and they're lying to you. Just don't worry about it. Just tell them that you want to see an immigration judge, and just plead the fifth. That's the best way to protect yourself, and let your attorney speak for you once you get to that point. Next thing was just going over an attorney or not an attorney. Like I said before, attorneys don't matter when you're there at the interview. We don't do much. We just sit there. So don't think it's going to make a material difference regarding whether we're physically there or not. It's the preparation that's the key. It's getting those questions answered, telling the client what the problematic stuff is going to be, what everything's going to look like. All of this is what's important for that type of purpose. So just be aware that actually having an attorney there, if you do it all by yourself with the notary, and then you get an attorney, pay him $1,000 to go with you the day of the interview, and usually it's going to be about $750 or $1,000 just to go with you to the interview, we're not doing nothing. Okay, so I mean, what you're paying for is a preparation, not the actual day. So just understand that we don't really do much the day of. That's not worth it. But therefore, we're there to document everything, figure out what were the troublesome areas, write all those down. That way, when we can argue them later before the immigration judge, say, Your Honor, this is stupid. This was, a stupid crime. There's no conviction. This is ridiculous, and then move on. So, in a nutshell, an attorney versus no attorney at the day in the interview, pretty worthless. It's a preparation, and seeing the legal issues in advance. That's what you really want. And protecting your rights. Just be quiet. Name, date of birth, and I want to talk to an immigration judge. That's what you're focused on. Miriam, I'll kick it back to you because if it's 90 minutes, I think we started our portion beforehand, so it says 1 hour and 29 minutes. I think we might get kicked out in a minute.
I think we should be okay for now. Or yeah, so please go ahead and take those questions, and if you have additional information to share, please feel free. Hopefully, we won't get kicked out, but if that happens, in that case, then we'll definitely do an email follow up and respond to those questions. But hopefully, we can get through all of them right now.
Thanks, Miriam. I'll go ahead and read you the questions, Josh. We've got one here saying, in what situations do you think it's okay to not bring an attorney to the interview?
Oh, okay. I did not know how to see the questions. Okay. When to not have an attorney present. If you've been screened by an attorney before, or you've been screened by a nonprofit, I would be comfortable going by myself. That's going to be where you show up at one of our events. For example, like I said, this is not going to help too many with Bay Area, but we have a partnership with Fresno Unified. There are several events that I show up once or twice a month, and I show up at an event for Fresno Unified, and I sit down with people and talk to them. I'll know whether the interview is going to be clean or not. I know whether they're going to be okay or not, and I'll tell them whether they should go with an attorney or without an attorney. With Trump in office, the only times that I would ever advise somebody you're good to go by yourself is going to be a very clean naturalization, because there's not that exposure that if they don't get granted the day of, that you're going to get detained. So just because this webinar is specific towards adjustment of status, there is no way that I would ever recommend somebody walking into an adjustment of status over these next 3 years by yourself. You're asking for it. You don't want to do that. So I can't imagine a situation where I would say you're good without going with an attorney. I'd say you need one.
Thank you. The next question is, why do you think some people are waiting for a decision 6 to 12 months after the AOS interview?
That's common. That's fine. When it comes to processing times between the dates of the submission, the application to the interview date, you can look at those. They're online. That will kind of give you a guesstimation of about approximate time frame. And I think for Fresno, you're looking at about 8 months, if I remember correctly. Sometimes that can vary. Sometimes that can be 3 months. Sometimes that can be 12 to 18 months. They do not go in order. They usually go based on zip code. So you can have somebody that applies one day and they get an interview in 3 months. You get somebody that applies late, just same time frame, and gets interviewed 12 to 18 months afterwards. That's normal. The question seems to be focused more not so much on the time frame before the interview, but after the interview. Why are they taking so long? They probably just fell through the cracks. I've had one case right now that we're having problems with, and that it's been over 12 months, and we're waiting for a decision. There are mechanisms that you could check online that has kind of where you check to see what processing times are. You go a little bit lower, and it says, do you have a question, how long is this going to take for your specific case? And you can put the date of your application. You can put, how long you've been waiting, and it will kind of put you in a little, function. It'll tell you, hey, if you have questions about your case, you can reach out to us on July 16, 2026 or whatever. It takes a while to get to that spot. We call it not an info pass, you want a service request. That's because it's USCIS, U.S. and Immigration Service. That's the service. That's the service request, and then they'll put a little bump, and they'll send it over to the processing center. They'll look at it, be like, oh, it's been a while, and then they'll process it and get to it. So it's normal for it to take a long time. That means something went wrong. It either means there's a crime or there's a yellow flag. There's something going wrong, or it just fell through the cracks and they forgot about you, and it's going to take months for them to be able to pick your file up and take a look at it. So yeah, that doesn't help very much, but that's what I've seen.
Great, thank you. The next question is, do exits and entries to the US show up as a criminal record? For example, if you overstayed a visa, got sent back, and re-entered years later, would it show up as a criminal record?
No. This is kind of, okay, there's a couple different things here. So what we usually use for immigration purposes, we usually use the FBI background check. FBI background check is going to give you results in any time before Trump ever showed up. It was always pretty safe to do it because it goes through the Department of Justice, and there's a separation between the executive branch and Department of Justice. They usually don't work on the same team. They're usually independent. It's different now. But usually what we do is we do the FBI background check, or you can do a California DOJ, but that's only within the states. Let's say if you get caught at the border or something like that, that doesn't always pop up in these FBI background checks. It doesn't always pop up in the California background checks. If you entered with a visa and overstayed a visa, then there's never a spot where they fingerprinted you, because it's not like you were supposed to leave within 6 months and 6 months past, the next day they show up and take your fingerprints. That doesn't really happen. So specifically when it comes to the visa, there's not going to be any type of criminal record for that. You're not going to see it on FBI background checks. You're not going to see it on DOJ background checks. You might see it on something else. There's a FOIA that you can request, either with the Department of State or with USCIS or with the Department of it's OBIM, it's the Office of Biometrics and something Information Management. They can get a copy of the visa and stuff that you have there, but it's not going to be considered criminal because it's not criminal. It's administrative, despite what Fox News says. People here, if you overstay and you're accumulating unlawful presence, is that illegal? Yeah, but just because it's illegal doesn't mean it's criminal. Let's say if I have a criminal matter, or let's say I have a civil matter, I have a breach of contract, and I did something that was illegal, that doesn't mean I'm a criminal just because something's illegal. So do you have legal status here? No. Is that criminal? No. So it wouldn't be on a criminal record.
Great, thank you for that. So this is last call, everyone, for questions. I'm going to read the last one here now. So if you have any additional questions, now is the time to drop them in the chat. The last question is, what should you do if you get an emergency NTA? Can you ask your lawyer to request a virtual appointment?
The NTA, there's not really an emergency NTA. It's just the NTA. NTA is pretty much the notice to appear to immigration court. That's when the only time under these circumstances that's going to happen is you showed up at the interview, you're going to get the NTA because you're going to be detained, or you got scared and so you didn't show up to your interview and they just denying your application and you're still going to get the NTA. It's not like not showing up is going to change that result. You're still going to get it. So if you don't go to the interview because you're scared and you get the NTA via mail, let's say, then what do? Can you go to your lawyer and request a virtual appointment? You can. Once immigration court starts, then usually the first 2 or 3 hearings that you can do them virtually, or you can just answer certain questions written and just cancel the whole first 2 or 3 hearings and then set it to the final hearing. So that is a way to protect you. Having an attorney can help you with that. But when it comes to something else, if you're in immigration court and you have appointments set up, and let's say you got a hearing in 2028, the exposure doesn't come from the NTA. It comes from what happens with ICE. ICE will set up ICE check-ins for you to go personally to talk with ICE, and that's where you get exposed, and that's going to leave you in a tough spot. So the attorney can protect you in certain spots. There are some attorneys that will show up to ICE appointments without their clients. That's a possibility. That's going to piss off ICE. But that's a whole different story. We can get into that in the next segment, I believe, regarding detentions. and about what it looks like to kind of navigate the immigration court process. But yeah, the answer to the question is yes and no. Can your lawyer request virtual appointment? Yes, but that sometimes that's not going to help you.
Thank you. And we did get one more question. Based on your experience, is it possible for someone with DACA to be detained if they were out of status before receiving DACA? They are married to a U.S. citizen and overstayed their visa, for example.
What I've been seeing is that there's not a lot of movement against DACAs. The DACA kids, they're in a much better position. They kind of feel like they're not really military, but they're kind of in that wiggle room. Most of the people that are getting detained DACA are individuals with a criminal conviction. That usually is going to be a DUI. If it's a DUI and let's say it got downgraded to a wet and reckless, that's one of those yellow flags. So if it's a clean case and they're married to a USC and they overstayed their visa, then usually they're fine. The unlawful presence. This is kind of why it's stupid with this whole everybody's illegal and they're all criminals. The unlawful presence, the amount of days that you're here without status, in that fact pattern, the DACA will pause any unlawful presence. So there's no accumulation of unlawful presence for those days. The days before the DACA was granted, those are going to be automatically forgiven because they have the U.S. citizen spouse. So they'll be fine.
Thank you, Josh. I think that brings us to the end of our Q&A. Miriam, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I just had a question about the use of social media, and also if you have personally seen any cases being denied because of an individual's association with certain political group or like their ideology. Have you seen that happening quite like often lately? Denials?
No. No,
No.
I haven't seen any. I know when you look at, big picture, I think there was that one guy in Boston or whatever that, they're like, hey, he's Muslim. I mean, the government doesn't like Muslims. That's kind of the reality that we live in. But I have not seen people here have that trip up. I think it's also because we don't have a lot of Muslims here. It's a lot of just because I'm Mexican. My family's kind of in that heritage. Haven't seen a lot of individuals who are detained because of what's on social media. I haven't even had it brought up at all, social media. But when it comes to ideologies, I mean, the only people that I've really seen is, again, this is my personal opinion, but I think it's people who are gay, LGBTQ, and people who are of color. I think that's something that seems to be, I don't want to say targeted, but that's what I see more people getting detained. Yeah, people who are of color and people who are gay. That I've seen a couple of interviews where I'm like, okay, the two cases that I got that are completely clean, they are clean. One of them I was actually in the interview and I was like, that was perfect. That was an absolutely perfect, clean interview, and they still detained them because they're gay. And so it's either because a small little thing that I can't see, or it's because they're gay. And I don't want to think that's our government doing that. It's disgusting. But a part of me feels like, yeah, I think if you're LGBTQ, I think you got something to worry about. If you're a person of color, I think you got something to worry about. And that's people of color. That's a lot of our immigrants here.
Thanks, Josh. And actually, so sorry, we have one more question. This will be the last question as we're a little bit over time. We want to honor everyone's time. What is your take on interview descheduling? We had some clients descheduled in the Sacramento office, and they are still waiting for 3 to 6 months.
That sounds oh God. I don't know how that can be good. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's tricky. I'd worry about whether that's Afghanis or refugees, or that's got to be something. It's Sacramento, so there's not a lot of Mexicans or Latin Americans. I mean, a lot of SAC is a lot of Russians and a lot of Asians. It's different there. It's different there than it is here. But I don't like that. I've never had any of my cases ever get descheduled. Never. Um, so that would worry me. Yeah, I'd have to look at those, and that's where, if that's a legal representative, or if that's, I don't know if that's a client or not, or who it is, but that's where I'd start reaching out to the ILD or the ILRC, talk to somebody, or just call us or talk to me, and we'll figure it out. But yeah, that doesn't make me feel very comfortable if I was if I was one of those, if I was representing somebody in that group, that make me worried.
Just to clarify, descheduling, is it on the part of USCIS, sending a notice, changing a date and
That's what
time,
I
or
think.
like the client requesting a change?
I think that descheduling sounds like USCIS doing it. If it's a client doing it, then that's a different problem. I have done one of those recent interviews where the client didn't show up, and they're worried about getting detained, so they rescheduled it. I've had clients that are worried about getting detained, so I'm like, you kind of feel a little sick there. You may be a little COVID, and you want to reschedule your interview, and they're like, yeah, I feel sick. I don't want to go. And we reschedule it. But that doesn't sound like that's what it is. And I wouldn't want to reschedule under this, because I think you're just going to get NTA'd. I don't think it's going to protect them. That sounds like descheduling, like USCIS is taking action. I don't like that.
All right, thank you, Josh. For all of our participants, if you have any additional questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and we will address them upon the email follow-up. I'll go ahead and pass it off to Miriam for our wrap-up.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you so much, Josh, for your wonderful, very informative presentation. I'm sure everybody who is attending this webinar found it as useful as I did. I do, in my volunteer capacity, if I have any, given that I have 2 kids who are mainly sick in the past few months, I do some volunteer work, and I try to assist my community through my volunteer work with immigration and interview preparation and things like that, especially those who have no attorneys. This was extremely helpful. I truly appreciate the content that you provided, the information, and of course, like the risks associated with like attending those interviews, but like how to prepare for them. So thank you for that, and thank you to all our participants, our community members who attended this webinar. I just wanted to let you know that we will have another webinar next week on Monday. That's, I believe, Monday the 16th. And then the following Tuesday, we'll have our final webinar covering other immigration-related subjects. And Josh, again, will present for us his expertise and guide us and the community on how to approach multitude of scenarios. So I appreciate your time. And thank you so much for staying a little bit over the hour. Apologies for any technical difficulties.